Chapter 165 Night Encounter. After hearing shopkeeper Tian's explanation, Han Li had a better understanding about the treasure talisman. He couldn't help but look at the treasure talisman inside the brocade box once more. This store bought the golden light brick treasure talisman from a small family for a substantial price. It's a brand new treasure talisman, more than enough to exchange for Brother Li's 1,000-year-old spiritual herb. Shopkeeper Tian promptly said in a tone that suggested he was in an unfavorable position. Han Li sneered to himself. He did not believe the act the other party was putting on. At most, they were just fulfilling each other's needs. In shopkeeper Tian's eyes, Han Li's spiritual herb was certainly higher in value than this piece of treasure talisman. What do you think? Which item will Brother Li exchange for? Shopkeeper Tian finally asked with a smile. Hearing this, Han Li hesitated for a moment and couldn't make up his mind. He originally wanted to check out a few more stores and see if there were any better magic tools, but the items in front of him were pretty decent and satisfied him. He was reluctant to give up any of the items, especially that golden light brick treasure talisman. That would be of help to him in the future, so he absolutely had to get his hands on that item. These few items, I like them all. I am planning to have all of them. After considering for a while, Han Li made a decision. He felt like it might not be a bad thing if he just bought everything at the Myriad Treasure Store. At least it would reduce the attention he would receive and limit the impact to only the Myriad Treasure Store. All of them? Brother Li must be joking. After shopkeeper Tian heard what Han Li said, his face darkened. He thought Han Li was being greedy and unrealistically trying to exchange all of the treasures from the brocade boxes with one spiritual herb. Seeing this, Han Li smiled. He didn't offer an explanation, but rather took out an identical box from his storage pouch and put it on the table. I will use 2,000-year-old spiritual herbs to exchange for all of the treasures in your brocade boxes. Han Li unhurriedly said with control of the matter. Shopkeeper Tian was surprised and overjoyed. He couldn't bother to respond to Han Li's conditions and hastily checked the newly appeared spiritual medicine. When he made sure the new spiritual herb was indeed the same 1,000-year-old spiritual medicine as the first, he then looked at Han Li once again with a strange gaze. After all, a person who could bring out two rare spiritual medicines was worth his Myriad Treasure Store's attention. Han Li was wearing a cloak, so shopkeeper Tian wasn't able to clearly see the other party's expression. Because of this, the other party felt even more mysterious. Therefore, after a slight hesitation, he said decisively, "Very well. Since Brother Li says so, I will take a step back and agree to your conditions. But this person surnamed Tian has a small attached request. In the future, if Brother Li possesses any more of such spiritual medicines, I hope Brother will prioritize this store. This person surnamed Tian will definitely offer a price that will satisfy you." Han Li gave a few dry laughs and nodded lightly without giving an actual response, but in his heart he was already sighing, knowing that the other party still became suspicious. It looked like he should limit these types of deals where he exchanged spiritual herbs for treasure as much as possible in the future, else he might attract a fatal disaster. Shopkeeper Tian didn't know Han Li's real thoughts, but seeing that Han Li nodded and agreed, he was overjoyed. If the person in front of him who was surnamed Li could really give him 1,000-year-old spiritual medicine, the price of taking a step back today would have been completely worth it. And so, shopkeeper Tian and Han Li exchanged, and after putting away each of their items, both of them were happy. Han Li left the Myriad Treasure Store just like that. He didn't even dare to stay at the Market City for even a second longer. He quickly walked past the Market City's flying limit, and he immediately flew away from this place. Because he was afraid that the Myriad Treasure Store would send some experts to secretly track him, he didn't blatantly fly directly towards Yellow Maple Valley. Instead, he flew straight away from the Taiyue mountain range. After traveling for 3 or 4 entire days, he was then at ease, turned around, and flew back towards the Yellow Maple Valley. During an evening 3 days later, Han Li entered the outer ring of the Taiyue mountain range. Because the sky was about to darken, for the sake of his safety, he found a hidden cave to spend the night in and decided to head back to Yellow Maple Valley the following day. This cave happened to be located halfway up a certain hill. There was even a messy pile of rocks blocking the entrance of the cave. From the outside, it was hard to discover the cave. Han Li just happened to be able to stay inside. After eating something, he changed his clothing, leaned against the stone wall, and started meditating. It unknowingly passed to the second half of the night while Han Li seemed to be asleep, when he suddenly heard the sound of rustling clothes and moving wind. Bang! It seemed like someone outside the cave had landed on the ground on both feet. Han Li was startled and suddenly awoke. Could it be that people from the Thousand Treasure store are coming after me? Han Li couldn't help but think of the worst possible scenario. Junior Marshal Sister, this is a good, remote location. I think this place, is it? A familiar male voice sounded outside the cave. Han Li was a bit shocked, but he was finally relieved. If it wasn't the Myriad Treasure store coming after him for the treasure, then the other party was just passing through. There was nothing for him to worry about. Junior Marshal Sister, there's no need to look at me like that. Since you have never enjoyed the feeling of a sexual relationship between a man and a woman, this Senior Marshal brother will love you dearly so that Junior Marshal Sister will not waste her life as a woman. Your beauty will vanish at any moment, which would be a waste of your fair skin. The man's voice was neither fast nor slow. It was extremely tender, but the contents of his words were truly obscene and ruthless. Han Li breathed in a cold breath of air. Who was the person outside? How could he use this kind of tone and say these are P first then kill words? It was really impressive. Outside, there was only the sound of the man, but not the sound of the woman. This meant that this Junior Marshal Sister had already been suppressed. She probably wasn't able to open her mouth right now. But the man's voice was so familiar. He should be someone whom Han Li had seen before. Thinking of this, Han Li's curiosity increased, and he couldn't help but quietly move towards the entrance of the cave. Rip. The sound of the woman's clothing cut through the air, along with the man's indecent laugh. Here, first take a joyful meeting pill. Otherwise it won't be pleasurable. Cough, Junior Marshal Sister. Why do you look at Senior Brother like that? Actually, didn't you really want to pair cultivate with me after reaching Foundation Establishment? This could be considered me fulfilling your wish. Ha ha. The man seemed to be carried away as he laughed hysterically. At this moment, Han Li carefully moved to the entrance of the cave and started peeking outside. A man in white was squatting by a young woman and recklessly caressing her delicate body, pulling down her clothing from time to time. The woman's hair was a mess, so Han Li wasn't able to see her face clearly. But her body was already like a tender white sheep, half naked, revealing her white, bouncy skin, especially her half-hidden and half-revealed bosom. Her breasts were capable of elevating people's blood pressure and deeply evoking a man's natural instincts. So it was him. After clearly seeing the man's face, Han Li was somewhat surprised but also suddenly realized. The man was the narrow-minded Marshal Brother Lu who fought against the Morong brothers. He was a malicious, two-faced person. All Han Li wondered was exactly which poor Marshal Sister had become the tiny white sheep underneath his claws. Han Li didn't know if it was because this Marshal Brother Lu had heard what Han Li was thinking, but he unintentionally moved aside the messy hair in front of the woman's face. It revealed a beautiful yet extremely vicious face. How could it be her? After Han Li saw the woman's face clearly, he almost bit his tongue. Wasn't this the Junior Marshal Sister Chen who had shown affection for Marshal Brother Lu from the very beginning? She was already in a relationship with that Marshal Brother Lu, so why would this Marshal Brother Lu go out of his mind and play the act of raping and killing his own partner? But as Han Li examined Junior Marshal Sister Chen's glaring, fire-shooting eyes, it didn't seem like the normal teasing between couples. Han Li blinked his eyes and was feeling a bit confused. Found it. Suddenly, Marshall brother Lou stopped pawing the woman and yelled in glee. A tiny, delicate storage pouch appeared in one of his hands. Marshall brother Lou stopped paying attention to junior Marshall sister Chen. Instead, he poured the storage pouch, and out came a large pile of items, such as magic tools, talismans, and private items like the woman's clothing and underwear. Marshall brother Lou ignored everything else, and instead went through the items among the jars, bottles, and boxes, as if he were searching for something.